My name is Natalie Hayes. I'm 28 years old, and for most of my life, I believed that betrayal would be loud, obvious, impossible to misunderstand. I thought it would come with shouting, with undeniable proof, with something so clear and dramatic that there would be no confusion about what had just happened. But the truth is, the worst betrayals don't arrive like explosions. They arrive quietly, on an ordinary afternoon, with a bouquet of flowers in your hand and a smile you haven't had the chance to lose yet. That was how my life ended, and how a different one began. I came home early that day because I wanted to surprise Ethan. There was nothing special about the date. No anniversary, no occasion, just one of those soft, fleeting moments where you look at your life and think, "This is good, I should appreciate it more." So I left work early, stopped by a small florist 2 blocks from our house, and picked out white roses, his favorite. He once told me they made everything feel calmer. I remember thinking how silly that sounded at the time. I wish calm had been the worst thing I ever had to worry about. The house was quiet when I walked in. Too quiet, maybe. But I didn't think much of it. Ethan worked from home sometimes. My older sister, Emily, had been staying with us off and on while she figured things out after her last breakup. It wasn't unusual for either of them to be there. I kicked off my shoes, balancing the bouquet carefully in one hand. "Natalie," I called softly, half laughing at myself. "Wrong name. You're the one surprising him." I walked down the hallway toward the bedroom, and that's when I heard it. A sound. Soft. Rhythmic. Wrong. My hand tightened around the stems, thorns pressing into my skin, but I barely felt it. There's a moment, right before your world changes, where your brain tries to protect you. It offers you explanations. It's the TV. It's nothing. You're imagining things. I wasn't imagining anything. I pushed the door open, and time didn't slow down. It didn't shatter. It didn't do anything dramatic at all. It just stopped mattering. Ethan was in my bed, my boyfriend, the man I was supposed to marry in 3 months. And Emily, my sister, my older sister, she was with him, not beside him, not close to him, with him, like it was natural, like it had always been this way. The roses slipped from my hand and hit the floor with a soft, almost polite sound. Neither of them noticed at first. That's the thing about betrayal. It's rarely rushed. It's comfortable, practiced. By the time they realized I was standing there, they didn't look shocked. They looked interrupted. Ethan moved first, scrambling back, reaching for the sheets. "Natalie, wait." Emily turned, her expression shifting, not into guilt, not even into fear, but into something else. Something calculating. Something that said this was always going to happen eventually. And in that moment, something inside me clicked into place with terrifying clarity. This wasn't new. You don't move like that with someone unless you've done it before. Many times. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't ask questions. Because suddenly I didn't need answers anymore. I already knew the only one that mattered. How long? And somehow, I already knew the answer wouldn't be something I could survive hearing. "Natalie, please," Ethan started again. I raised my hand, just slightly, and he stopped talking. That was the last time I ever gave him that kind of power. I turned around, walked out of the room, out of the house, got into my car, and drove. I didn't know where I was going. Didn't care. The road blurred in front of me, and I kept going until the world stopped making sense. Until the thoughts in my head got so loud that I had to pull over just to breathe. I ended up in a park I didn't recognize. Sat there in my car with my hands gripping the steering wheel, so tightly my knuckles turned white. And that's when it started. Not the crying. Not yet. The remembering. 4 years. 4 years of loving him. 8 months of being engaged. 3 months away from a wedding that was already planned down to the smallest detail. Invitations sent. Venue booked. Honeymoon paid for. My dress hanging in the closet. His suit being tailored next week. My vows saved in the notes app on my phone. I used to read them sometimes. Practice them quietly when he wasn't around. I choose you. Every day. In every version of life. The irony made something sharp twist in my chest, because while I had been choosing him, he had been choosing my sister. My phone started buzzing. Once. Twice. Then again. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Ethan. Emily. Mom. Emily again. Ethan again. I flipped the phone face down in the passenger seat and watched the screen light up over and over again, like something was trying to claw its way back into my life. I let it, without answering, without touching it. Eventually, the screen went dark. I sat there until the sun started to dip lower in the sky, shadows stretching across the dashboard. And then I did the only thing I could think of. I drove to the cheapest hotel I could find. The kind of place where no one asks questions. The kind of place where everything smells faintly like chemicals and something else you don't want to identify. I checked in without really hearing what the receptionist said, walked into the room, closed the door, and just stood there, In the middle of a life that no longer existed. My phone buzzed again. This time I picked it up. A message from my mom. Natalie, please come home. We need to talk about this as a family. As a family. I stared at those words longer than I should have, because something about them felt wrong. Off! Like I had already been removed from that definition, and no one had bothered to tell me. I should have seen it then. Should have understood what was coming. But I didn't. I was still in shock. Still thinking, maybe this can be fixed. Maybe people will do the right thing. I didn't know yet that the worst part wasn't what I had walked in on. The worst part, and was what came after. The family meeting happened 2 days later at my mother's house. I almost didn't go. Even now, I sometimes replay that decision in my head and wonder whether some smaller version of me could have been saved if I had just stayed away. If I had trusted the cold instinct in my gut instead of the old, obedient part of me that still believed blood meant loyalty. But Mom begged. Not once, not twice, over and over, through texts first, then voicemails from unfamiliar numbers after I blocked the first few. Her voice sounded shaky, urgent, gentle in that way mothers use when they want to sound reasonable, when they want you to believe they are protecting peace instead of controlling the terms of war. Natalie, please, just come talk. We can work this out. Work this out. Like Ethan hadn't been sleeping with my sister in my bed. Like this was a misunderstanding instead of an amputation. So I went. Not because I forgave anyone. Not because I was ready. I went because some part of me still thought my family would look at what had happened and say the only sane thing there was to say. This was unforgivable. I was still stupid enough to hope someone would choose me. Mom's house looked exactly the same as it always had. The same trimmed hedges, the same ceramic pot by the door, the same lace curtains she never changed because she said good things didn't need replacing. I parked at the curb and sat in my car for a full minute, staring at the house where every holiday had happened. Every birthday cake had been cut. Every family photo had been taken. It looked warm, safe. That was the lie. When I walked in, everyone was already there. Mom, Emily, Ethan, Aunt Linda, Uncle Robert, my younger brother Mason. All of them arranged in the living room like this was an intervention, and I was the unstable one. No one stood up when I entered. No one rushed over to hug me. No one said, "Oh my God, Natalie, are you okay?" Instead, Mom gave me a strained little smile and said, "Sit down, sweetheart." Sweetheart. That word almost made me laugh. I stayed standing. My eyes went straight to Emily first. Then Ethan. He looked awful. Red eyes, unshaven, shoulders sagging like he wanted credit for suffering. Emily looked pale, but composed. Too composed. Her hands were folded in her lap, and if I hadn't known better, I would have thought she was preparing for a difficult but manageable conversation. Like she was here to explain a scheduling issue, not confess to detonating my life. "Why is he here?" I asked, looking directly at Ethan. Mom clasped her hands together. "Because we need to discuss this like adults." I turned to her slowly. "Discuss what?" A silence settled over the room, thick and unnatural. I could feel them waiting. For what, I didn't know. For me to make this easier, maybe. For me to cry in a neat, forgivable way. For me to say something that let them all keep their version of themselves intact. "I caught my boyfriend in bed with my sister," I said. My voice came out flatter than I expected. "What exactly are we discussing?" Mason shifted uncomfortably in his chair but said nothing. Aunt Linda lowered her eyes. Uncle Robert looked at the floor. Cowards, all of them. Emily finally spoke. "Natalie, I know this looks—" "Looks?" I repeated. "That's the word you're going with?" Ethan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Natalie, please, just let us explain." I stared at him. The same man who had kissed my forehead every morning. The same man who had stood beside me at venue tours and nodded through guest lists and argued with me affectionately over first dance songs. He looked unfamiliar now. Not like a monster. That would have been easier. He looked like a weak man who had mistaken access for love and selfishness for destiny. That was worse. "How long?" I asked. Emily inhaled sharply. "Natalie, how long?" Mom stepped in immediately. "Honey, I don't think putting numbers on this helps." I looked at her. "How long?" No one answered. Then Ethan, in a voice so quiet I almost missed it, said, 6 months. 6 months. The room tilted. Not visibly. Not enough for anyone else to notice. But inside me, something dropped so hard it felt physical. 6 months. Half a year. Half a year of smiles and lies, of shared meals and wedding planning and I love you and ordinary Tuesdays. Half a year of my sister sitting across from me at brunch, asking about flower arrangements while sleeping with the man I was going to marry. 6 months of them turning me into the dumbest person in every room I entered. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It came out wrong. Thin, jagged, like the sound glass might make if it learned how to speak. 6 months, I repeated. That's impressive, honestly. Natalie, we never meant for it to happen like this, Ethan said. I turned to him. How exactly did you mean for it to happen? He opened his mouth, closed it. Emily jumped in. We tried to stop. I looked at her so hard she flinched. You tried to stop, I said softly. In my house? Natalie, Mom warned. No, let her answer. Emily's eyes filled with tears, and for one weak, pathetic second, I think she expected those tears to protect her. We didn't plan this, she said. It just happened. Feelings developed, and then it got complicated. Complicated. I looked around the room. Is that what we're calling betrayal now? Aunt Linda straightened up and gave me the same expression she used to wear when I cursed as a teenager. A little scandalized, a little superior. This is painful for everyone, she said, but anger isn't going to solve anything. I stared at her. Painful for everyone. That sentence told me everything I needed to know. Not what they did to you is monstrous. Not you were wronged. Just a vague little cloud of shared discomfort, as if everyone had been caught in the same rainstorm by accident. Anger? I said. You think anger is the issue here? I think, Aunt Linda said carefully, that if you want any chance of healing as a family, you need to stop speaking from emotion. I almost smiled, because that was the moment something became crystal clear. They had not gathered me there to support me. They had gathered me there to manage me, to contain my reaction, to help Emily and Ethan survive what they had done without having to feel like villains. Mom stood and came toward me slowly, as if approaching an injured animal. Honey, she said, resting a hand lightly on my arm, I know you're hurt. I pulled my arm away. She kept going anyway. But Emily is your sister, and family. Family forgives. I looked at her face, trying to find my mother in it. The real one. The woman who bandaged my knees and sat through school plays and told me that if anyone ever treated me badly, I should never stay where I wasn't valued. I couldn't find her. All I found was a woman desperate to keep the family structure intact at my expense. And Ethan, she continued, glancing back at him, if he and Emily have real feelings for each other, then maybe it's better this happened now before the wedding. My whole body went still. There it was, the final betrayal. Not hidden, not softened. She had chosen them. Not because they were right, not because I was wrong, but because choosing me would have required consequences. And consequences are inconvenient for people who are used to asking the strongest person in the room to swallow the damage. You're taking their side, I said. Mom's face tightened. There are no sides. You're taking their side. Mason finally spoke, too fast, too nervous. Nat, nobody's saying what they did was okay. I looked at him. Then what are you saying? He hesitated. And in that hesitation, I got my answer. Emily wiped at her cheeks. I know this hurts, but you don't understand. Ethan and I laughed again, harsher this time. No, I understand perfectly. You wanted each other more than you respected me. Ethan stood up. That's not fair. I turned on him so quickly he stopped moving. Not fair? I said. You slept with my sister for 6 months while letting me plan a wedding. You let me try on dresses. You let me write vows. You let me talk about children. You kissed me with her still on your skin. And now you want to talk to me about fair? His face drained of color. Good. Mom's voice sharpened. Natalie, enough. I looked at her, and something in me quieted, not calmed. Ended. That was the strange part. I had imagined, in the first day after finding them, that if my family failed me too, I would collapse. I thought I might scream until my throat tore. I thought I might beg someone to make this make sense. Instead, I felt something colder, cleaner, like a blade. So let me understand, I said. My voice was steady now. My boyfriend sleeps with my sister for 6 months, in my bed, in my house, while I'm planning a wedding. And I'm the one who's supposed to be calm. I'm the one who's supposed to be understanding. I'm the one who has to protect the family from discomfort. Nobody said that, Mom replied, but she sounded less certain now. That's exactly what you said. Emily stood up too. I never wanted to hurt you. I stared at her. And of all the things said that day, that may have been the ugliest. Because it wasn't just a lie. It was an insult. You did hurt me, I said, repeatedly, deliberately, for half a year. Tears spilled down her face. I fell in love with him. That sentence landed between us like a dare. As though love was holy enough to excuse the way she found it. As though what mattered was the sincerity of her feelings, not the wreckage she created to satisfy them. I took a slow breath, then another, and I looked at Ethan. Really looked at him. The man I had nearly tied my life to. Then I looked at Emily. My sister. My blood. The person who had borrowed my sweaters in high school and cried in my lap after bad breakups, and once sworn, drunk and weepy at 22, that no man would ever come between us. She had kept that promise in the most literal way possible. Keep him, I said. Emily blinked. What? Keep him. Have the whole relationship. Frame it. Put it in a glass case. Build a shrine. I don't care. Natalie, Ethan started. No, I held up a hand. You don't get to say my name like it belongs in your mouth anymore. No one moved. No one breathed. I turned to Mom. And you, I said quietly, you chose her. Her eyes filled instantly. Please don't do this. I almost smiled at the absurdity of it. Don't do this. As though I were the one tearing something apart. As though family loyalty had not already been dragged through my bedroom and stripped down to nothing. You chose her, I repeated. That's fine. You're allowed to make that choice, but choices have consequences. Natalie, don't be dramatic, Aunt Linda cut in. I turned toward her so sharply she froze. That word. Dramatic. The favorite weapon of people who want to injure you and still be seen as reasonable. I nodded slowly. You know what's dramatic? Coming home with flowers and finding your sister with your boyfriend in your bed. You know what's dramatic? Being summoned here and told to absorb it gracefully so no one else has to feel bad about who they are. Mom was crying now, real tears, but they didn't move me. Not because I had turned cruel. Because I had finally stopped confusing tears with innocence. You don't mean this, she whispered. I looked at Emily one last time, at the face I had known my entire life. And I felt grief, yes. But underneath it, something stronger. Finality. I don't have a sister anymore. Emily made a sound then, small, broken, like I had wounded her. Maybe in a way I had. Not because I was unfair, because I had refused to stay available. Mom shook her head. Natalie, please. I turned back to her. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't show up at my house. I'm done. Mason stood halfway, panicked. Nat, wait. No. My voice cracked like a whip through the room. That stopped him. Stopped all of them. I came here thinking at least one of you would care what this did to me, I said. At least one of you would be angry on my behalf. At least one of you would look at them and say this was disgusting and cruel. But none of you did. So now I know exactly where I stand. Natalie, Mom sobbed. We're still your family. I walked toward the front door, then stopped. Without turning around, I said, no, you are my family. Family doesn't ask the betrayed person to make betrayal easier to live with. And then I left. Nobody followed me. Nobody ran after me into the yard. Nobody called my name like they were afraid to lose me. That hurt more than anything. Because it meant part of them was relieved. Relieved to let me go if letting me go meant they didn't have to confront what they'd chosen. I got into my car and shut the door. For a second, I just sat there, staring straight ahead, my reflection faint in the windshield. My face looked different. Not older. Not harder. Just awake. The drive back to the house felt unreal. Not my house anymore, not really. Just the place where I had built a future with a man who had quietly handed pieces of it to someone else. When I got there, some of Ethan's things were already gone. So were a few of Emily's. That, more than anything, made bile rise in my throat. They'd planned ahead. Maybe not every detail. Maybe not the exact timing. But enough. Enough to move fast. Enough to transition from betrayal to arrangement without ever stopping to consider the body they were stepping over. I stood in the bedroom doorway and looked at the bed. Our bed. My bed. And for the first time since all of this started, I cried. Not loudly. Not beautifully. Just one hand over my mouth, shoulders shaking, grief pouring out of me in raw, humiliating silence. I cried for the wedding that would never happen. For the woman I had been 3 days ago. For the house that no longer felt clean. For the family I had spent my whole life loving in ways they clearly found convenient, but not sacred. And somewhere beneath all of that grief, a decision began to form. Small at first, then solid. If they wanted each other, if they wanted this version of the family, they could have it. But they would never have me in it again. When I went back into the bedroom the next morning, the air felt different. Not just empty, contaminated. Like something had happened there that couldn't be undone, no matter how many times I washed the sheets, or opened the windows, or tried to convince myself that space was just space. It wasn't anymore. It was a memory I couldn't live inside. I stood there for a long time, staring at the bed, at the imprint of a life that had already been erased, and I realized something that felt both terrifying and strangely freeing. There was nothing left to save. Not the relationship. Not the house. Not the family. Nothing. And when there's nothing left to save, you don't have to stay. That thought settled into me slowly, like something heavy finding its place. Then everything started moving very fast. I called a real estate agent that same afternoon. Didn't hesitate. Didn't second guess. I need to sell, I told her. She asked if I wanted to wait, maybe stage the place, get a better price. No, I said. I want it gone. Gone like it had never held laughter. Gone like it had never been mine. That night, I slept on the couch. Not because the bedroom was physically unusable, but because I couldn't step back into that version of myself, the one who had believed she was safe. The next morning, I called my boss. There had been a conversation months earlier. A transfer opportunity. Different city, bigger role, more responsibility. At the time, Ethan had talked me out of it. Too far from family, he'd said. The irony of that almost made me laugh. Is the position still open? I asked. There was a pause on the other end. Then, for you? Yes. How soon can I start? Another pause. You're serious. I am. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks to dismantle an entire life. It sounded impossible. It wasn't. When you stop hesitating, things become very simple. You pack. You sort. You throw away anything that feels like it belongs to a version of you that no longer exists. I worked through the house like a stranger. Clothes into boxes. Kitchen cleared out. Photos taken down. There was one of me and Emily on the fridge. We were younger. Laughing. Our arms thrown around each other like the idea of betrayal didn't exist in our world. I stared at it for a long time. Then I took it down. Not gently. Not ceremoniously. Just removed it. Like it had never meant anything. The calls didn't stop. Mom. Mason. Aunt Linda. Even numbers I didn't recognize. Voicemails filled up with variations of the same message. Let's talk. You're overreacting. Family doesn't do this. That last one almost broke me because I wanted to scream. Exactly. Family doesn't do this. But I didn't call back. I blocked them. All of them. One by one. It didn't feel powerful. It felt like cutting off circulation to a part of your own body. Necessary. But painful. 3 days before I left, Emily showed up. I saw her through the window, standing on the porch, hesitating. For a second, just one, I thought about opening the door. Not to forgive her, but to ask why. To force her to say it out loud. To make her look at me and explain how she justified turning my life into something disposable. But then she knocked. And something about the sound, too familiar, too casual, like she still believed she had access, that she could just knock and I would open. I didn't move. Natalie, she called through the door, please, just talk to me. I stood in the hallway listening. I know you're in there. Of course she did. She knew my routines, my habits, my patterns. She had lived inside my life long enough to memorize it. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she said, her voice cracking. That sentence. Again. Always that sentence. As if the damage had grown legs and walked itself forward without her help. I walked closer to the door. Close enough that if I spoke, she would hear me. But I didn't. Because there was nothing she could say that would give me something I didn't already have. The truth. And the truth was simple. She chose herself. At my expense. Eventually, her voice softened. I miss you. That one almost hurt the most. Because it sounded real. And that's the problem with people who hurt you. They don't stop feeling. They just decide their feelings matter more than yours. I reached out, not to open the door, to close the blinds. The soft click of them shutting felt louder than anything else that day. Her knocking stopped after that. A few minutes later, I heard her footsteps fade away. That was the last time I saw my sister. The day I left, the house was empty. Clean. Unrecognizable. I stood in the doorway one last time, keys in my hand, and let myself feel it. Not the pain, not the betrayal, but the ending. Because that's what it was. Not a pause. Not a break. An ending. I locked the door, left the keys on the counter for the agent, and walked out without looking back. The new city felt like stepping into someone else's life. Different air, different pace, different version of me. No one knew me there. No one knew what had happened. No one looked at me with that quiet expectation of forgiveness. At first, it was disorienting. Then it became peaceful. Work was demanding, relentless. Exactly what I needed. I stayed late, took on extra projects. Pushed myself harder than I ever had before. Not to prove anything to anyone else, but because I needed somewhere to put everything I couldn't say. The anger, the humiliation, the grief. The gym helped too. At first I went because I couldn't sleep. Then I stayed because it gave me something solid to focus on. Lift, run, breathe, repeat. Pain became structure. Structure became control. And slowly, control became strength. 6 months in, I barely recognized myself. Not just physically, emotionally. I wasn't waiting for anyone to call. Wasn't checking my phone. Wasn't wondering if I had made a mistake. I had made a decision. And I was living inside it. That was the difference. I made friends. Real ones. People who asked questions but didn't pry. Who showed up because they wanted to, not because they shared DNA. We went hiking. Tried things I had never done before. Rock climbing. Trivia nights. Simple things. Normal things. And for the first time in a long time, I felt normal. I dated casually at first. Nothing serious. I wasn't ready. Didn't trust my own judgment yet. Didn't trust anyone else's intentions. But it felt good to be wanted, without being lied to, without being replaced. Then I met Daniel. It happened at a friend's barbecue. Nothing dramatic. No instant fireworks. Just ease. He was kind in a way that didn't feel performative. Funny without trying too hard. Attentive without being overwhelming. We started seeing each other slowly. No pressure. No expectations. Just time. 6 months in, he asked about my family. We were sitting on his couch. Quiet night. Rain tapping softly against the windows. And I told him everything. From the moment I walked into that bedroom, to the family meeting, to the way they all chose her. He didn't interrupt. Didn't try to fix it. Didn't rush to respond. He just listened. And when I finished, he looked at me like I had said something important. Not inconvenient. Not dramatic. Important. They chose your sister and your boyfriend over you, he said finally. Yes. And then told you that you were overreacting? I let out a breath. Pretty much. He shook his head slowly. That's not normal. The words settled into the space between us. I frowned slightly. What do you mean? That's not family, he said. That's emotional abuse. The word hit me harder than I expected. Abuse. I had never used that word. Never even considered it. Because abuse, in my mind, had always been louder, clearer. But suddenly everything rearranged itself. The gaslighting. The minimizing. The expectation that I absorb the damage so everyone else could stay comfortable. You did the right thing, Daniel said gently. Leaving. Cutting them off. Building something new. You don't owe them anything. I sat there in silence, letting that sink in. Because for the first time, I believed it. Life didn't just get better after that. It got clearer, stronger, more mine. Until one day, a message came through from a number I didn't recognize. Your mom's been diagnosed with early-stage cancer. She wants to see you. And just like that, the past found me again. Cancer. The words sat in my chest like something heavy and unfamiliar. Not sharp like betrayal. Not loud like anger. Just heavy. I stared at the message for a long time, my phone resting in my hand while the world around me kept moving like nothing had changed. But something had, because no matter how much distance I had put between myself and that life, this reached through all of it. I called Daniel, not because I didn't know what to do, but because I needed to hear my own thoughts out loud. He came over within 20 minutes, didn't ask questions right away, just sat beside me, his presence steady, grounding. What do you want to do? He asked gently. I exhaled slowly. I don't know. That was the truth. Because my first instinct, the raw, immediate one, was suspicion. That this was a way back in. That they would use this, wrap it in urgency and guilt and obligation, and pull me back into the same dynamic where my pain didn't matter as long as the family stayed intact. But she was still my mother. And cancer wasn't a small thing. Even early stage. Even treatable. What's your gut telling you? Daniel asked. I stared at the floor. My gut is telling me this isn't about me, I said. It's about them needing me again. He nodded slightly. And what else? I swallowed. That if I go back, nothing will have changed. That was the part that mattered. Not the diagnosis. Not the fear. The pattern. Because patterns don't disappear just because something scary happens. They just get disguised. I called my uncle. He confirmed it. Stage 1. Caught early. Surgery scheduled. Prognosis good. She's going to be okay, he said. But she's asking for you. I closed my eyes. Did she ask you to contact me? There was a pause. Then, Emily did. Of course she did. That answered everything. Tell Mom I hope her treatment goes well, I said quietly, but I'm not coming back. There was silence on the other end. Then a disappointed sigh. You're really going to hold on to this? I almost laughed. Hold on to this. As if what happened was something I was choosing to keep, like a grudge tucked neatly into a drawer. I'm letting go, I said. Just not in the way you want. I hung up. And for 3 days after that, I felt awful. Not because I thought I made the wrong decision, but because choosing yourself doesn't erase the part of you that still cares. Daniel stayed with me those nights. Didn't try to convince me either way. Just reminded me, quietly, that protecting yourself is also a form of love. And eventually, the feeling passed. Not completely, but enough. Life continued. Mom's surgery went well. I knew because Emily posted about it. Photos in the hospital. Smiling. Captions about strength and family and support. No mention of me. I didn't expect one. And for the first time, I didn't need one. 18 months after I left, an email came through. From Ethan. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. Natalie, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from. I just needed to say I'm sorry. Emily and I broke up months ago. It was a mistake, all of it. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me for something that didn't even last. I was selfish. I hurt you in ways I can't undo. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know I regret it. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be. I read it once, then again, then I deleted it. Blocked his email. Because regret doesn't rebuild what betrayal destroys. And I wasn't interested in being the person he realized he should have valued only after losing me. 2 years after I left, Daniel proposed. It wasn't elaborate, no grand gestures. Just a quiet moment in the kitchen while we were cooking dinner. He turned to me, holding the ring like it mattered more than the words he was about to say. I don't need perfect, he said. I just need honest, and I want that with you. I said yes before he finished. Because this felt real. We got married 6 months later. Small ceremony. Close friends. His family. People who showed up without being asked. People who chose us. No one from my old life was there. And for once, there was no empty space where they should have been. 3 years after I left, my life didn't look anything like it used to. And that was the point. I had been promoted again. Director level. A salary I once thought was out of reach. A career built on something solid. Something mine. Daniel and I bought a house. Not too big. Not too showy. Just right. And then we had a daughter. Emma. She had his patience and my stubbornness. His calm. My fire. She laughed easily. Trusted freely. Everything I had once been. Everything I had almost lost. And holding her for the first time, I understood something in a way I never had before. Love isn't proven by how much pain you can endure. It's proven by what you refuse to accept. The call came on a quiet afternoon. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something, instinct, curiosity, maybe closure, made me pick up. Natalie. Emily. Her voice sounded different. Thinner. How did you get this number? I asked. I've been trying for months, she said quickly. Please don't hang up. I didn't respond. It's about Ethan, she continued. That name meant nothing now. I don't have a boyfriend, I said flatly. There was a pause. Then, he's in rehab. I leaned back slowly. He's been struggling, she said. Drinking, pills. He lost his job. Her voice cracked. He tried to kill himself. The words hit like cold water. Not because they broke me, but because they echoed something familiar. Consequences. Choices. Pain. Is he alive? I asked. Yes, he's getting help. But he keeps asking about you. He says he needs to make things right. I closed my eyes briefly. Across the room, Daniel was playing with Emma, her laughter soft and bright, completely untouched by any of this. Natalie, please, Emily said. I know what we did was wrong. I know we hurt you, but he needs you. There it was again. Needs. As if I had always been the one responsible for holding everything together. For fixing. For absorbing. For staying. I opened my eyes. I'm not the person he gets to heal through, I said. Silence. Then, softer, almost pleading. He was young. He made a mistake. I let out a quiet breath. He made a choice, I said. Over and over again. For 6 months. You don't understand. No, I cut in. You don't understand. You don't get to rewrite what happened just because the outcome didn't work in your favor. Her breathing hitched. Natalie, we all made mistakes. And there it was. The final attempt. To blur everything into something mutual. Something forgivable. Something equal. No, I said calmly. You made choices. I made a decision. What does that mean? It means I built a life where I'm respected, where I'm loved, where I'm not expected to tolerate betrayal so other people can feel comfortable. Her voice broke. So that's it? You're just done with us? I looked at Daniel, at Emma, at the life I had chosen. Yes, I said. And this time, there was no hesitation. I hung up. A month later, an email came from Mom. Apology. Real this time. Clear. Specific. She admitted she had chosen wrong. Admitted she failed me. Said she didn't expect forgiveness. Just wanted me to know. I read it. Sat with it. Even cried a little. Because it was everything I had wanted. 3 years too late, I replied once. Thanked her for the apology. Told her I hoped she was healthy. And told her I wasn't coming back. She wrote back. I understand I love you. I didn't respond. Last week, I got a message from Ethan. 6 months sober. In therapy. Taking responsibility. Not asking for anything. Just, sorry. I read it. Then I deleted it. Because closure doesn't require reopening doors you fought to close. Yesterday, I got tagged in a photo. Emily. Mom. Ethan. Some extended family. All smiling. The caption read, Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I untagged myself. Blocked her. And put my phone down. Emma ran into the room. Mommy, play with me. I picked her up, her laughter bright and effortless. Daniel smiled at us from the kitchen. And in that moment, everything felt exactly as it should. They spent 3 years trying to get me back. I spent 3 years learning I never needed them in the first place. Turns out, the best revenge isn't making them suffer. It's building a life so full, so peaceful, so undeniably yours, that their absence doesn't feel like loss anymore. It feels like freedom.